So I want you guys to think back on things I've described and explained in past videos. Think about what color and light, how they operate, what that says about there being another world or dimension of some sort where everything is a different color, almost like the opposite of what we see, of what we perceive, and how all of that also suggests that all things are, all of life and all of existence is within like a sea of light. Keep in mind, remember that seas are typically equated with females, women, mothers. Now also think about what I said about the mom monster versus the baby boy monster. There's a selfish baby boy monster deep down in your reptile mind and all the things that it's concerned with. But then there's also a protective, self-sacrificing, more self-controlled mom monster down there that protects her young, and what she's concerned with. There was another one I wanted to add in here. There was another example. Shoot. So this is going to just be a reminder video anyway, not the proper video. But I want you to take that and I want you to start building that together and planting seeds and building the foundation for you to start understanding the concepts and the symbols. And then also keep in mind that the third thing was what I said about how male fetuses develop. They start off looking like females. And then what happens is eventually, so many weeks into the pregnancy, the male fetus builds up enough androgen that it pushes back against the mother's estrogen and begins developing male body parts. Before then, the ovaries descend into testes, and the clitoris elongates into a phallus, so on and so forth. So remember that in order to get males, they have to build up enough androgen and push back against their mother's estrogen. So they are sort of breaking free of mom. They are, within mom. They're like pushing back and honing down themselves. Like, I'm different from my mother. They're pushing back because the mom's estrogen is trying to keep it a girl. Is trying to keep the fetus, the growing fetus, a female. And sometimes this kind of goes a bit awry. Sometimes, like, the boy's androgen doesn't quite push back against mom's estrogen so well. And then he doesn't really develop so much the boy parts. And we get different levels of that. To the point where we'll have people that are like they look full on female, but I guess technically on a chromosomal level, they have the XY. I've heard of that. I haven't seen it. I don't know about whether or not those people would be able to conceive children or which way they would go with the conception of the children. Would it be more female or male? I don't know. But when you get into those gray shades, it's like, happy to explore there, but again, only so much time in the day. But remember, the basics are, in order to get males, they have to push back, separate from mom, at least to some degree. It's like, freedom from mom. I'm going to be a boy. I'm going to be swinging dick. Yeah. Okay. And then think about the light. factor in the light, the big white, the light, the still white light, sea of white light that all things are supposedly in, all of existence is within. And how we're sort of within like a void that's within that light, or we perceive that we're in a void within that light. And the way that void was created was a piece of that sea of light sort of pressurized itself down, seems, to make what would be our sun, the fallen sun, pressurized himself down. And again, this is how the Kabbalah begins. This is the God that they worship, is the one that pressurized itself down to create an empty space within which to create. It's like, well, he was separating from the first source deity, the light, goddess, the mother of light. That's the idea behind this. And another concept that I see a lot popping up is this idea of all females walking around are sort of like avatars of her, and that our eyes, not these eyes are like gateways, doorways, access points back to her. So this is where we get concepts like, this is where we get symbols like the blue-greenish hummingbird, little blue-greenish hummingbird, sipping at a large sunflower. So they see themselves as their boys. They broke off away from mom in order to be boys. Freedom! And they tap back into mom through her avatars, their wives and whatever else with a vajayjay they stick it in. But this is, so I'll be pointing this out, these a lot of these people using certain symbols repeatedly, or referencing certain symbols, such as a blue hummingbird or a blue-green hummingbird sipping at something that could represent a big white light, or like a sunflower. Like girls down there, that's called a flower quite often. And if the big white light's a sun, it's the real sun, it's the true sun, not the fallen sun. Understand? These are the concepts behind these symbols. I see how I'm planting the seeds of the foundation so you can understand what these people seem to believe. Again, it does not matter whether or not you believe it. That doesn't matter here right now, okay? What matters is other people believe this and they act upon it, and this affects you. Sit there and say, oh, that's silliness all you want. There are people out there, I think a significant number of them, that believe this. And you know what? True or not, even if it is true, I think the way they act upon it is disgusting and sick. I think that I'm going to be eventually leading this back around to how this is looping into, it's already, if you see it, the mother-son dynamic, it's already looping into pedophilia, or it could be seen through that lens if you were inclined to see it through that lens. You could see it through other lenses that are healthier. But these people are not healthy. They're not healthy-minded. They're sick. It's kind of the idea of like, if you see a pregnant mom walking around, she's pregnant with a boy, and she's big-bellied, and she's got a son in there, do you go like, oh, that mom is having sex with her son right now? No. 'Cause that's sick. It's gross. Not if you're like a normal, decent human being with like a regular mind that isn't totally inclined towards sex all the time. And perversion, okay? Like, no, you just go like, oh, look, that mom's walking around with her baby boy in the belly. I wonder when he's going to come out, blah, blah, blah. Like, so if you conceptualize this it's like she's like pregnant with her son and all this life and all of us and all in a way. So the sickos see it as like, oh, mom and her son are having sex. They see it as like between the two of them together, because like one represents the light and one represents night, and day and night, and light and dark, and dry and wet and hot and cold. And between these two things, we get all life. You need both. Opposites, extremes, and everything in between. That's what all that means. That's what those, so the belief systems, the old religions, the old myths about like Semiramis and Tammuz and Nimrod. That's the mother. Oh, and Isis and Osiris and Horus, the mother, had a fallen son, and between the two of them, they created the third one, which is, it seems to be maybe like mankind, humankind is the representative there. So that's essentially the idea. It seems to me, that's how my interpretation of it. That's actually the true concept behind the Semiramis and Nimrod and Tammuz myths, and the Isis, Osiris, Horus myths, and there are quite a few more that follow that same pattern. What they're really trying to relay, the concept they're really trying to relay, is the concept I just relayed to you, which is that we are actually all within sort of this sea of light that you could say is more feminine, a mother, really. And the way that this physical existence came about was a piece of her broke off and created a void, sort of, and pressurized itself down to create that big exploding dick in the sky, all those hydrogen atoms that are highly pressurized. That's just a bunch of nuclear reactions happening all the time. That's the sun. That's the sun that we're revolving around. And he created everything down here, suppose. Well, but it's just like you could see it on a material scientific ways realm. It's like, nothing would exist down here without that sun, giving light and stuff. It doesn't necessarily mean like it's a living, thinking. It could be on a whole other level, dimension. So that's sort of the idea behind this. That's one thing that these people seem to believe, is that there's like a physical, scientific, material aspect to everything. So, and that's like what we're perceiving with our eyes. Like we see, when we look up at the sun, what we see is like a big round ball of, it looks like a big round ball of fire, and it's a bunch of, scientifically, it's a bunch of explosions happening, but there's supposedly this spirit soul level that we can't perceive with these eyes, at least, but everything sort of has that form too. And supposedly that form, the sun has that as well. The earth supposedly has that as well. Again, do you think maybe it would be a mother? Mother Earth, maybe. Are we starting to understand? But so, like, I'm trying to build you guys up to understanding these concepts, and understanding like some of the symbols that would represent these concepts. Just the same way I pointed out in a previous video not long ago about Richard Hart, about how the Freemasons, they seem to use four-leaf clover, and often red four-leaf clover, to symbolize the Knights Templar cross. In that same way, we have the sunflower and the hummingbird, little blue-green hummingbird, representing the giant mother of light, still sea of light, and her little fallen sun, like a little blue-green, like a blue hole, blue sun, blue hummingbird. And we'll get into the hummingbird connection. That ties in a lot more, in a lot more ways. It's an Aztec warrior deity, so on and so forth. All right, I'm going to cut this one off here at about 15 minutes. I'm trying to keep them on the shorter side, so I'm not like overloading you guys with too much information, but just ponder the stuff I've just go back over and watch the video again if you have to. Really think on the concepts and the things that I'm telling you about, that I'm describing to you. This is important for spotting these people. Okay. Good night.